My name is Jessie Ace. I'm part of a group of enabled warriors that you've probably never heard of. We're fighting back against our invisible illness and taking the dis out of disability. We don't give sympathy to our symptoms. They enable us to be the warrior that we are. If you ask doctors and nurses, they'd say what we're doing is impossible. But pushing the limits of our conditions is something that we have to break through every single day. See, we push the limits. We are mentally strong, and we can do anything. The question is, how far can we push those limits? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Jessie Ace, and this is the Disabled to Enabled podcast. Enabled Warriors on our show today is an incredible warrior with an exceptional diagnosis story. She has a condition called MCTD, which I'm hoping that you're going to tell me what that stands for because I have no idea. It's a rare autoimmune connective tissue disease with clinical features of 3 distinct diseases, whilst also having a very rare antibody, U1RNP. So you're just one of a kind. You're just one of a kind. So 3 distinct diseases include systemic sclerosis, lupus, and a form of myositis. I hope that's right. So these diseases wreak havoc on all systems of the body, including but not limited to muscular, vascular, nervous, circulatory, integumentary, digestive, and respiratory. Oh my gosh, that is a mouthful. So in most cases, these diseases cause decreased mobility, diffused organ failure, and eventually death. That's a nice one to add in there, huh?
Yeah.
It's kind of like having an IV full of cement put into a human body. Wow. She's been through it all the last few years, and she's done amazing things since her diagnosis, and I can't wait to hear more about this. It's so exciting. I find you so inspiring, and you manage to keep such a positive and uplifting attitude to life despite everything that's going on. You're amazing. Enabled Warriors, please help me in welcoming the most incredible blogger that is known as the tube-fed wife online, Mrs. Chanel White, everybody! Woo! Hey! Chanel! Hi. I can't wait to spend some more time getting to know you today. I'm so glad I came across your blog.
Oh, I'm super excited.
When I first read your story, I honestly burst into tears. I was like, oh my gosh, this is an incredible enabled warrior. You're amazing. So welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm okay. I had surgery yesterday. So I will clear my throat a lot because I was intubated. I had GA. So pardon that. My mouth is also very dry. Living the dream. So, but I'm okay. I have a working feeding tube again. So that's solid. So yeah, I mean, feeling, not dead, which is a good thing for me.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I can't anything above not dead is pretty good. So yeah.
I love that standard. Yeah, just anything not dead. It's fine.
I have very low standards. That's how I keep a positive attitude. That's my secret. Low standards.
Amazing. So let's get straight in by discussing your initial diagnosis. So take us back to your wedding day of all days. It happens on your wedding day when things started to go a little bit crazy, didn't it? Do you want to tell us what kind of went down on the wedding day?
Yeah. So it was kind of so while planning my wedding, I had noticed just a lot of fatigue and my hair was kind of falling out. And my fingers were turning purple, and I didn't really think much of it because my fingers had turned purple for a few years before that, and I was kind of okay, well, it's nothing. And I noticed on our wedding day, my husband had a really hard time slipping the ring on my finger. And first off, I was like, well, this is embarrassing. What is going on? We're at the altar, and he's like, oh, so no. And I was I had to help put it on. And I was like, why are my hands so swollen? What is going on? And of course, I just shrugged it off because I was I don't know, I'm stressed. We're moving, we got married, we're going on a honeymoon, life. I have to remember to breathe. Sorry. Life is changing. And so fast forward a month, and my fingers started to die. I mean, necrotic tissue. I had I don't know, I thought they were burns, even though I don't cook. I was oh, it's a burn. I'm I don't cook. How would I have gotten a burn on my finger? but like they were like necrotic flesh, like pus ulcerating. And I was like,
Wow.
shoot, I should see a doctor. I was definitely that person. I was never sick. And so I was like, it's nothing, you know? And so I called and I was like, I don't know, like I explained my symptoms and they were like, you need to see a rheumatologist like right now. And
Mm.
I was like, what the heck's a rheumatologist? Like, I don't know. Like, I literally like never even had the flu growing up. So I was like,
No.
I don't know, they're going to give me some pill or like antibiotic and like I'll be fine. So I went into the rheumatologist and he like took one look at me and was like, are you aware that you have like necrotic digital ulcers on your fingers? And I was like, I don't know.
Like,
Because I
I
was
may have
clear,
noticed them.
yeah, I was clearly like a naive 20-year-old that's like life is rainbows.
Yeah.
And so he like just kind of looked me over and like my fingers were like you people say like sausage fingers, but like legit I had like clubbed hands like beyond like Frankfurter fingers. Like they were huge. Like we're talking about like kielbasa sausage. And I was just exhausted. Like, I mean, the bags under my eyes had bags under those. And my hands were like shiny and tight. Like I couldn't straighten my fingers anymore. And he was like, you have scleroderma, the systemic sclerosis.
Mm.
And I was, again, like, I don't know what that means. Like, you're just going to fix it, right? And he was like, no, like, this is not something you
Ah.
fix. Like, this is something you die from.
Oh gosh.
And I was like, excuse
I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, what?
What?
And he was like, I'm going to take some blood work. We're going to get lung evaluations immediately, like digestive evaluations. We need to look at your heart. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I just have like burns on my fingers. And he's like, no, like this is happening to your insides as well.
Oh
And
gosh.
he's like, I'm so sorry. Like, you likely will have 10 years or less to live. And my husband and I are sitting there. Our wedding was like 2 months ago. And we were like, he's joking, right? And he looks at me and goes, do you want me to call your parents? Because I was 20. And I was like, well, I don't even know. It was just like such a shell shock. And in my head, it like wasn't real. I was like, okay, like this is, I was like, no, 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 he's wrong. Like, that's crazy. Like, I've been healthy my whole life. Like, no. So the blood work came back. And not only did I test positive, for like clinical manifestations of scleroderma, and lupus and a form of myositis, like my CPK was through the roof. They couldn't even, I mean, like my muscle weakness, it was just my body was like eating itself. And so I had this rare, sorry, I have a cat hair in my mouth. I had this rare antibody, the oh my gosh, what did I say it was? The URNP, something like that.
Yeah, you are.
It's basically, oh, perfect. Thank you. That's clearly I've had too much chemotherapy because my brain cells don't function at a level that I would like them to. It came back with that antibody, and he's like, so, I mean, you do have all these diseases, but you also have this rare overlap syndrome called mixed connective tissue disease. And it basically is its own condition, but means you have all these conditions plus this rare antibody, and you have a different progression mode.
Wow.
So in my case, it affects, the lungs, the heart, and the digestive tract, maybe more than someone that just had one of these diseases. And so mine is like this combination with this antibody that just constantly thinks I am the enemy because it's an autoimmune disease. So it's rheumatic, it's vascular, it's it's connective tissue, and I mean it destroys everything. And so it's interesting because MCTD can be really mild and it can kind of be like a day-to-day nuisance, or it is just an absolute death sentence. And in my case, they were like, oh, the first 5 years will kind of tell us if you're going to get to that 10-year mark. And within the first 5 years, I went into massive organ failure.
Oh no.
And they were like, no, like you're going to make it to 5 years, maybe. And so, as I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, I ended up doing a clinical trial that put me into like a brief, I don't like to say the word remission, but that's really all I can call it.
Yeah.
For like 2 years. And then I hit a very hard relapse. So that's like a very long explanation of my diagnosis.
In
process.
terms, so it's kind of like saying, in terms of the chronic illness lottery, you won the jackpot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like yeah,
Oh
100%.
wow.
It's funny because autoimmune runs in my family. Like my dad has
Okay.
psoriasis, my sister
Mm.
has alopecia, and then I just got like I don't
Everything.
everything else. Like they were like, we're just going to check all the boxes. And it's funny because through the years, I've actually gotten more autoimmune diagnoses, and of course, all the comorbidities that come with them.
Gosh.
And at this point it's kind of comical because I'm like, you can't get sicker, right? And it's like, no, you just keep getting sicker with autoimmune. It just piles on, and it just takes one organ after the next, and it's just a weird process because they have all these drugs for autoimmune. Well, they don't technically. My disease has not one FDA approved treatment. There's no one doing research on MCTD. Nobody cares. So there's
Wow.
not a lot of us,
Nobody cares.
right? And so I, they put you on immune modulators or immune suppression, and that's not even really like a band-aid. They're just trying to squash a problem that can't be squashed.
Mm.
And so those come with their own host of issues. And for me, none of them worked. They put me on the strongest immune suppression, all the different ones. They combined them all at the same time at one point, and my body was just like bulldozed right through it.
It's like, nah,
So
not having that.
yeah, it was like, nope, I am king of the castle. And so it's been a very wild experience.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah.
It does. But I can't. It's just like I can't get my head around how you're so uplifted and positive, and you constantly see the humor, and I absolutely love that about you. That's just so amazing and so refreshing as well.
Right. Like I hate like stupid phrases, like, but like idioms, but I'm like, literally, if I'm like, it's really true. Like if you're not laughing at the situation,
Oh
you're
yeah,
crying.
totally.
And honestly, I do a good amount of both. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't consider myself an optimist. I'm like a realistic optimist. Basically, I just expect everything to go wrong because I know that this disease will kill me. And so whenever something goes even remotely well, I'm like, sweet, it's a good day. And so in reality, I'm like a secret pessimist, and that's why I'm so happy.
That's awesome. If that works for you, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's what works for me. And most people are like, wow, that's sad. And I'm like, it is sad, but that is the only way I can survive. So
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I really do. So, so what was it like to be diagnosed so soon after getting married? I mean, I can't even imagine like, so I got married 2 years ago, and I can't imagine like standing there at the altar kind of, having all these things go wrong. I mean,
yeah.
did you have any kind of feelings of guilt maybe towards your new husband? I
I
mean,
mean,
how did that feel?
I still have them. Excuse me. I still have immense guilt. I
Yeah.
really feel like I know it's not me, but like I feel like I took everything from us because the disease is harbored in my body. And so all the money that we had saved for school and like traveling and all these things
Yeah.
instead went to medical debt. Like we lost our first apartment to medical debt. I didn't have insurance when I was diagnosed. Obamacare hadn't kicked in yet. And I was young, and I had just gotten kicked off my parents' insurance because, I was past, I think it was like 19 before Obamacare. I could be totally wrong. We should probably fact check that. um, and luckily it went into effect shortly after I was diagnosed. So I was put right back on their insurance.
Mm.
But it really didn't feel real. Like I was just like, okay, like I'll take some medications. Like I'm more tired, but whatever. I went on with my life. I finished my trade school, and I just kind of did my thing and kind of pretended it wasn't affecting day-to-day life.
Hmm.
And I think the first time that I was like, oh no, like this is bad, was the first time I was told, like, we're going to amputate your finger. And I was
What?
like, oh wait, like, am I sick? And the doctor was like, I've literally told you you're going to die and you still don't believe you're sick. And I was like, I don't even know. I wasn't in like denial per se. Maybe I was, but I was just in like such a like, I didn't know anything about the healthcare system. Now I read medical journals for fun, so a lot has changed. So I was just like, everybody gets better from being sick. I don't know. I didn't have anyone in my life that was sick.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really understand. And so they were like, yeah, we need to amputate your finger. Like you have gangrene from the ulceration,
Oh
totally
no.
necrotic. My finger was black and oozing this nasty, like brown pus.
Oh, lovely.
Sorry, TMI. And luckily, they were able to just lance the tip of my finger off. So I have quite a few
Mm.
lopsided fingers, which is why I always get my nails done. Actually, most of them curl down anyway. They still look funky. But it's the one thing that makes me hate my fingers a little bit less. And they were able to give me this really crazy infusion that was called Flolan epiprostinol. And it basically opens all of your blood vessels. And if they push it too fast, your blood vessels explode and you die. So they run it on this super slow, like teeter, and they check on you every 10 minutes. And it saved my finger. I mean, they still had to take some of it off, but it stopped, it got blood flow enough to kind of heal what was left in there. And so I had that same situation. They'd be like, we're going to amputate the pointer finger. Now we're going to amputate the thumb. And every time I went in, I was like, please try the Flolan again. And every time it would save my finger. I mean, they'd have to take a good chunk out. So my fingertips look real weird. And eventually it got so bad and I was getting Flolan so often and it was so dangerous. They're like, we can't continue doing this. So they referred me to a surgeon who did something called a digital sympathectomy, where they actually took out the sympathetic nervous system from my hands and fingers.
Wow.
So they opened up my palms and they dug out scar tissue and they clipped the sympathetic nervous system, which causes the vascular system to kind of spasm closed.
Wow.
But in my case, the arteries in my fingers were crushed anyway, because they told me, like, you are going to have no fingers by the time you're 26. So they did this surgery, which, let me just tell you, taking stitches out of your palms. Oh my gosh. Because there's like nothing there. There's no muscle there. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, oh my gosh, it's so painful. And so luckily, my ulcerations diminished quite a bit after that. But I still have quite bad Raynaud's just because my my arteries are just smashed up and they can only debride so much scar tissue. But I have some pretty cool scars, very large scars that go across both palms. So they did both hands. So it was like not like 80% successful. I mean, I still have all my fingers, not all the tips, but I still count 10. So
it's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah.
That's not bad. That's not bad. Not bad.
It's
number.
not bad, yeah.
Oh my goodness. So can you tell us what it's like to really live in your body for a day? Like what kind of daily symptoms do you have and does it change?
Gosh. Well, I'm on a feeding tube. So my digestive system was just like the first thing to take. I mean, well, second thing besides my vascular system, obviously, was the first thing to really just like take a hard tank. So my esophagus is totally paralyzed. So I have no peristalsis in my esophagus. It's funny, the first time we did an esophageal manometry, the tech, which is basically just by being waterboarded with a tube down your throat. It's awful, but like a big tube. So they stick it down there and you're awake because you have to swallow water. And I'm swallowing and they keep yelling at me like, swallow, swallow. And I'm like, I'm swallowing. And they're looking at they're looking at the computer and they're looking at each other and they're like, is she swallowing? Is she, yeah. And all of a sudden one of them pulls out a phone and I'm like, what are they doing? We're in the middle of a test. And they go, do we really have to finish this? And I was like, excuse me? And they go, literally nothing is happening. Do we really have to keep doing this to her? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, we technically can't tell you. We're just going to send you to the doctor. And I was like, okay. So they sent me right back to the doctor. We didn't even finish the test. And he was like, your esophagus is completely paralyzed. Like nothing's happening. And I was like, well, that explains why everything was getting stuck. And I felt like I was choking all the time. But I was like, what? And so they're like, we need to test the rest of your organs. So, we did the gastric emptying study and I had gastroparesis. They did the small bowel follow through and I had severely delayed small bowel function. The colon was just a wreck. My pelvic floor muscles, I mean, all the sphincters in my body, they have no pressure. So you got to poop. You already pooped. So it was really crazy because it just went from like 0 to 60 so fast. Dead fingers, dead digestive tract, and then my lungs, it started to cause fibrosis in my lungs. so I have, I'm on the feeding tube because I can't digest food. And then I am on oxygen with exertion. My diaphragm at one point was functioning at 13% because, like I said, it affects my muscles because of the myositis. And so, BiPAP, all the things. I actually had a thing that I would have to inflate my lungs when I woke up in the morning and throughout the day because I just couldn't do it myself. And so I get very short of breath because my lung function is not good. Like my PFTs are not super great. So luckily, right now at like room air, I'm like a 93 sat. But when I start really like moving and grooving, I used to love to go to the gym. You start dipping into the 80s and they're like, okay, put on your oxygen. And that's a mixture of just like early pulmonary hypertension and like minimal amounts of fibrosis, and the diaphragmatic issue just is like a triple threat for me. And then you just have like the pain and fatigue of your body essentially turning to stone, right? Because it causes fibrosis. And so and because it's rheumatic, all my joints are always very inflamed, and my muscles are inflamed, and everything's just really swollen, and it comes with a lot of fatigue. And so, I mean, symptoms wise, it's just, I don't even, well, where to start, everything. Obviously the organ failure is my biggest issue. But like it changed my body a lot. And so that was weird to see like my reflection in the mirror not be what I used to have like very big full lips, and I used to have kind of a little bit bigger nose because everything tightens, so you kind of get like a facelift, but not necessarily one you wanted. And to be honest, my skin tightening is very limited because I don't just have systemic sclerosis, I have the MCTD. And so for me, it was more just minimal skin tightening. Like I can't straighten my fingers. I don't know how well you can see that. But most people are like clawed, like they can't move their arms, like they literally are in like mummified essentially. Like I always say like it's like you're in your own casket, like you're building your own casket, which is really dark. Sorry, I have a very dark sense of humor. And so but yeah, so I'm actually quite blessed to not have all the skin tightening, but I got all the organ failure, unfortunately. So
wow.
So I mean,
yeah,
a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. It's fun to be you.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's great. It's always a great day when I wake up and I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed. But a lot of times, like I can't get comfortable even in bed. I don't really sleep because I can't breathe when I sleep. So you'll find me a lot of times at 3 a.m. diddling around on my phone, because even though I try to go to sleep, I wake up. I mean, even with like machines, I just can't breathe. I actually have an adjustable bed. I have to sleep sitting up. I can't lay fully down because even though I don't have anything in my stomach, really, the acid will still come up, and I will aspirate because my sphincter doesn't close. So, I'm like the case study when they want to see like for a barium swallow. They always bring in like the people that are like learning, and they're always like, wow, your esophagus is so cool. And I'm like, I'm so glad you think so. Like, I'm so glad my body can help someone, even if it's not me.
Yeah.
Because they think it's, the students think it's fascinating because I literally it just stays in my esophagus, doesn't go anywhere. So, and then it just kind of comes back out.
Lovely.
So, and one time they were doing that and I got a bloody nose and I was shooting like barium and blood everywhere.
Wow.
It was very gory and hilarious. And I think I scared the students that day, but I thought it was super funny. So,
you so need that on a t-shirt. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that amazing t-shirt on that says out of order. You so need a t-shirt that says I scare medical students.
Yes, for sure. They love me and are terrified of me. They come in, like, I've had, oh my gosh, I used to be at like a teaching hospital and I literally couldn't do it anymore because they would come in and talk about me like I wasn't there and they'd be like, yeah, feel her. Wow, touch this. Yeah, do you see that? And I'm like, I'm here. So my mother-in-law is so funny. She put out a tip jar and she said like, it was like $1 to like, like touch or like feel and like $5 for photos. And everyone thought it was hilarious. I was so embarrassed, but she's like, seriously, like they never leave you alone. And I was like, I know, like
That is
apparently
so
I'm
funny.
exciting. So it was a very funny.
Oh wow. Okay, never mind that. You need that on a t-shirt because
Yeah, exactly.
that shirt
Yeah,
just cost you $1.
exactly. Yep, yep.
Oh god. Anyway, right. What would you say is the most annoying thing people who don't really understand your condition say to you?
Ooh, okay. So I know they
Mm.
mean well. Like I fully know that, and I don't blame anyone because, like I said, like when I was first diagnosed, I didn't know anything, and I get it. Like if you've never
Yeah.
been sick, you don't know. But when people tell me like get well soon,
Oh, that is the worst.
um,
That is the
I'm like, like even people that have followed my story for quite a while because I've been blogging for like 7 years, and
Oh
people will still be like get well soon, and I'm like,
wow.
in what universe?
That ain't gonna happen.
Like yeah, I'm like you know what I mean, like, and I get it, they in their mind it's like I want you to feel better soon, and I totally
Yeah.
get that, but it always cracks me
Yeah.
up because I'm like, I don't know, like I would much rather have people be, because you know what I mean, like I said, like I'm a realistic optimist, like a secret pessimist, and I'm
Yeah.
like, lower your standards, people. Like just tell me like I'm glad that you got out of bed today, or like I'm glad that you aren't at a 10 out of 10 pain scale today,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean, like give me realism, because one of my least favorite things in the world are the people that are like super unrealistic about my condition and are like, oh yeah, like they'll say like, and of course they mean well, and like I'm not, you know what I mean, like I appreciate the
Yeah.
positive idioms, but it's like, oh yeah, like when you and your husband have been married for 50 years and blah blah blah, and it's like I
Mm.
like appreciate the sentiment, but it's hard for me because I know that not going to make that. And it's just a
Mm.
reminder to me that like I'm not going to get well, and I'm not going to get to be married to the love of my life for how long I wanted to be. And so, you know, just give me something a little more realistic.
Exactly. But like you say, like they don't
They
know
don't
your
know.
body, they don't know,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly. I love the people that are like, I'll eat a cheeseburger for you today. I'm like, yeah.
Like,
Or the people that like I go out with, and before they take a bite, they'll let me sniff it. And I'm like, yes, hot box me with that cheeseburger. I like make my husband get takeout just so I can sit in the car so my car will smell like food. 'Cause I'm
oh,
a total weirdo if you haven't caught on to that yet. So
I love that. That's so amazing. And I think those kind of people you need around you.
yeah,
Definitely.
totally.
They sound like good people.
Yeah, very good people. I've got a great support system. So
That's amazing. Yeah.
that's very important.
Definitely. So, can you describe the person that you were before the diagnosis and then the person that you are now? Would you say that the diagnosis changed you at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that whenever you go through a life change, there's always like an adaptation period.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Ugh. Sorry, I just threw up a little
You're
bit.
right.
I swallowed it. We're good. Um, so, I mean, there's going to be an adaptation period, and again, like I say, like oh, like these idioms, right? Like these phrases, but like you do stop to smell the roses. Like it's
Mm.
that's so cliche, but it's true. Like you notice more, you care less about things that aren't important. And I think that I learned a lot about my relationship with my faith and with my relationship with like my heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. And I think I really took time to do more of the things that I loved because I knew I wasn't going to have the amount of time I thought I was going to. And
Mm.
so like I learned that the most important thing you can do in life is to fill it with things that are actually attainable. Because, you know, I had all these goals and all these dreams, and I'm not telling people not to like strive for their dreams, but clearly I'm not going to be like an astronaut. Not that that's what I ever wanted to do, but like, you know what I mean? And so I took those things out of my life. I said, quit dreaming of things that aren't going to happen and do the things that you can achieve. And so I really flipped my perspective in that way. And life has been so much better. Like a lot of people, again, will be like, what a pessimistic view. But the reality is, like, doing the things I can attain makes me feel good because I can check something off. I can do it. When I'm constantly striving to do something that I can't achieve, you feel super crappy about yourself.
Of course,
And so you know, when I made my bucket list, it was like very attainable things. I wanted to ride a ski lift because I'd never done that. So we rode a ski lift and I screamed the whole way.
I'd probably do that too.
Terrified. And like I'd never been to a concert, so I went to a concert.
Cool, which one?
Who was the first band that I saw? Oh, Head and the Heart. They're my favorite band. I actually got like a wish. There was like, it's kind of like an adult Make-A-Wish foundation, but it's like a musical foundation and you get to see your favorite band. And so Head and the Heart came into town and I got to meet them and it was just really awesome. So there was just like, you know, like there was other like little things. Like I wanted to visit certain places in my state that I'd always wanted to see. I wanted to go to this place called Lake Crescent and, you know, my husband took me there and they were, again, just things that were actually achievable. And so my life felt like it was full, just full to the brim of happiness. Whereas before it was constantly like, got to get an A, got to get, you know, into this college, got to do this, got to do that. And now it's just like whatever happens is good.
Yeah.
It's a lot better way to live life.
Oh, definitely. It drives me crazy when I see, especially like if you go on social media and you see people just moaning about really pointless things, you just think, oh,
yeah.
You've got no idea.
And like, I can't blame them because I don't understand it. That was definitely me. I'd get a haircut and be like, oh, she cut off 2 extra inches and I hate it. And then I was bald for 2 years after chemo and a bone marrow transplant. And I was like, wow, I used to complain about my hair. Like, I feel like such a jerk, but I didn't know. So it's, you know, I can't blame those people. But also, there's definitely days where I'm just at like a 10 out of 10 pain. And I'm like, oh, I can't take you anymore. I'm like throwing my phone across the room because I can't handle social media because they're like, oh, I forgot my eyeliner today. And I'm like, I forgot my life-saving medication. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just perspective. And I totally get that you don't get that until you get it.
Exactly. I say that all the time. You don't get it until you get it. It's so true. So true. So can we chat a little bit about
so much cat hair. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Are you okay?
Oh yeah, cat hair. It's everywhere.
I'm kind of the same with dog hair. It's just I don't even know how it gets to the place.
Right? I wake up with like in my eyes and I'm like pulling it out and I'm like, how? Or like, you know, like around my feeding tube. Like I just, oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Or some, I don't even know if this is appropriate. No, you know what? I'm not going to say it. Never mind. No, yes, I am.
Well, I'm dying to know what you're going to say now.
I don't know. Okay. I have very bad sexual dysfunction because of my disease. It's caused a lot of scar tissue in my lady bits. And so it's very difficult for me, for my husband and I, another thing that I feel so guilty about, to have sex. I'm not sure how open you are on this podcast, my bad. But I kid you not, like, so my doctor had prescribed like use vibration, like it will help. And I don't know, I'd never had sex before I got married and I'd never tried. And obviously I was diagnosed. And so they're like, okay, so, you know, you can find cat hair on the vibrator. And I'm like, what the heck? How did this even get here? You know what I mean? Like when you have a cat, it's just everywhere. Side note, sorry if that was a little bit TMI. I'm just like very like, I just say things. But yeah, so that is one thing, probably the thing that I feel most guilty about in my marriage is that like I can't be like a sexual equal. First off, I just have no drive. And second, like I'm literally broken in that area of my body. And so it's like, better find something else to do. You know, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, But like
That
I
must
said,
be
I have a very sweet, patient husband. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah. And my doctors have tried to help me for years. I actually went to like pelvic floor therapy that was just to try and fix, like, they were like, we can do surgery, we can take out some of the scar tissue. And I was like, that just, like, no. I also just have weird anatomy. So it's just been a mess. But that is,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things I feel very guilty about. Totally just got on that sexual topic from cat hair. Sorry.
I love how that came from cat hair of all
You
things.
see one of them right there with my clawy, pointy finger. She's up there. That's Nova.
Oh,
Cannonball is running around somewhere.
being a cannonball.
Being a cannonball, exactly.
Oh, so cute. So cute. Okay, can we chat a little bit about HSCT? Because this is a
About what? Sorry.
HSCT, so the stem cell.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was like, what is
thing
that?
that you had?
Yes.
It might
I'm
be a
gonna
slightly different kind
pronounce it wrong. Hematopoietic stem cell transplant. And it was an autologous hematopoietic stem cell transplant. So autologous means like your own cells. I was my own donor. Hematopoietic is the type of cell, so it's a blood cell that produces your immune system. It's found in the bone marrow, produced in the bone marrow, and then, stem cell. So stem cells are made in the bone marrow. So it about 4.5 years in, they were like, you're clearly not going to make it to 10 years. I was on oxygen full time at that point, feeding tube. I actually had a home healthcare nurse that had to come to my home, and we would run fluids every day and different medications, because my heart was starting to like literally crush itself. And I was just a wreck. And they were like, you're not going to survive another year. So there's this clinical trial going on. And they're doing it for scleroderma and lupus. But we think they might do it even though you're, classic MCTD. And so my doctor referred me to all these different programs around the country, and everybody kept saying no, because they're like, she's too far gone. We're going to kill her. Yeah. And finally, there's this clinic in Chicago that was like, we'll give it a try if she's willing. And I was like, well, my doctors basically told me, like, you can not do it and die, or you can try it, die in the process, or it might work. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, literally, I'm not just going to sit and wait, because at that point you're just waiting for organ transplants. And so, so I flew off to Chicago, lived there for like 3 months, I went back and forth a ton. And what they do is they give you, the point of a stem cell transplant, it's also called a bone marrow transplant. The whole point is to give you the most amount of chemo they can give a human being, well, basically killing them. You're taking your blood counts out to 0. And then the stem cell reintroduction is literally just so you don't die. There's not really like a therapeutic benefit. It's literally so that you can create a new immune system, because with that much chemo, your body just wouldn't regenerate one on its own. And so, there's donor transplants, which I was not eligible because my body can't even handle my own immune system. It's definitely not going to handle someone else's. So I was my own donor, which probably is why it only lasted a couple of years, because my body is so set in a rut of attack yourself, right? So even though they killed me down to that last stem cell, my internal computer is just so, excuse me, I'm talking too much, too fast. My own, they just reactivate it. So the way they explained it to me, so basically they reboot you, right? They turn you off and on again, and you wait to engraft these cells, and you start budding this new baby immune system. And what's supposed to happen is those cells aren't supposed to have kind of this memory of disease, because you actually are creating new ones. They're not just harvesting you right off the street, right? You're taking this special medication that makes your body produce new stem cells. Very painful. They come out of the area your body produces the most stem cells is like your pelvic bones. So it feels like something is just busting out of your pelvic bone. And a lot of people have equated it to like childbirth. I've never had a kid. I have dead ovaries. I can't have children. I don't know what that's like, but I trust the people that say that. I don't know. And so then once your blood is literally flooded with new stem cells, then they put you on this big giant machine that takes all your blood out and puts the immune cells in one bag and then the rest back into you. My bone marrow was already so damaged from the year of chemotherapy that I had done before that I barely made enough stem cells for the transplant. Barely.
Wow.
And so those cells, unfortunately, like, even though they were new, like, I mean, if you think about it, so my immune system did not activate until I was 20, right? It didn't negatively activate until I was 20. So these cells were doing well, and then they just reactivated at like 2.5 years. And like, I don't blame my body for that. Like, my body's crap. Like, like if I was the new cells, I want to get out too, you know? So, everything just came flooding back. The process was horrific. When I say they literally kill you, like, I've never wanted to die.
Yeah.
I wanted to die. Because normally the process isn't as hard on the human, I mean, it's always hard on the human body, but because I was in organ failure, it was a very touch and go process. They almost lost me a couple times. It was just a month straight of puking my guts out. I mean, I mean, like, losing my vision, like, just, like, in and out of consciousness. At one point, they actually sedated me because they could not get my nausea under control. And I was just, my organs could not handle the amount of chemo. My heart could not pump it out because my heart was so damaged. And so I went into this like fluid overload and gained a bunch of weight and fluid. And unfortunately too, so the chemotherapy they give you is called Cytoxin, and it causes bladder cancer, which is ironic because it's a chemotherapy drug, but it also causes cancer if you don't protect your bladder. And they tried to give me the drug that protects your bladder called Mesna. I legitimately went into anaphylactic shock.
Oh no.
And they were like, oh, okay, well, we still have to give you this drug. So they had to do like an in and out catheter. So I had like a 3-pound bag of fluid flushing in and out my urinary tract because they didn't want me to get bladder cancer from doing the transplant. Wow. So I was just a hot mess. And at one point the doctor came in and he just felt so bad. He just rubbed my head and he said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And clearly I lived, which was great. And I saw a lot of benefit, like a lot of benefit.
Yeah.
I started to be able to eat certain things again. My breathing improved, my diaphragmatic function improved, my skin score, which they kind of pinch your skin to tell how tight it is. It improved dramatically.
Wow.
And so I saw a lot of improvement.
Good.
And then somehow, which I didn't know this was possible, apparently it's like 0.0000001%. I ended up with autologous graft versus host, which graft versus host is quite common in donor transplants. Apparently, I ended up with graft versus host from my own cells, which my doctor said he had seen one other case in his 20 years of doing this. So of course my body is just like all the things. So that was I mean, like the scaly rashes, it felt like my digestive tract was on fire. Like I had diarrhea constantly, everything hurt. I was like pulling out clumps of my hair. I was a mess. And I was still working at that point. And it was to the point where I was pulling over my car because I was so tired to take naps on the drive home. And, they did the blood tests and all these things, and, the biopsies, it was clearly graft versus host. So they got that under control with an antibody therapy and a lot of steroids. But of course, I think that's really what set my immune system off again. It was like, oh, we can attack her now, like we don't have to be good anymore. And so about 6 months after that is when I hit like a hard relapse. I don't remember a lot of my transplant, to be honest with you. I would love to give you like specifics, but I was so out of it and just so much on death's doorstep that like my mom or like my husband will say something and I'll be like, what? That didn't happen. And they're like, you don't remember it, but it happened. So it was just like a very dark period of my life.
Found it.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of amazing improvements for 2 years. So, I mean, I have the option, I guess, to do that again, to see if it can give me another 2 years of sort of remission.
Yeah.
I would never do again.
Yeah.
Not saying it wasn't worth it. I'm glad I did it the first time. But I feel like I've put in my effort, and that is not something that I would ever subject myself to again. First off, I don't think my organs could handle it a second time. I don't think my emotional health could handle it a second time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing, and that's one thing that I did want to ask you as well, is just how have you managed your emotional health throughout this whole process, because it must have been so
Yeah.
hard on your mental health at this point.
So I have hella bad PTSD. I had before the transplant. So just talking about my body having all the things, I had Guillain-Barré in 2014.
Yeah,
It's
what is that?
it's like all of a sudden all the nerves in your body demyelinate and you just go paralyzed,
Oh
like out of nowhere.
gosh.
Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. And that was the first time that like my family was actually called and told to say goodbye. Like I had family that lives across the state, and they all came to like say goodbye to me in person
Wow.
because they were like, she's gonna die. Like you don't live through Guillain-Barré. On top of all the stuff I already had, Guillain-Barré, like 3 years into my diagnosis. Luckily, again, I survived that. They treated it with IVIG and again, a lot of steroids. I was in the neuro ICU for I don't even remember how long. And then I had to go to inpatient physical therapy because I had to relearn how to walk and use my fine motor skills. My body, because everything demyelinated, I basically was a toddler. I had to relearn how to do everything.
Wow.
And that was probably one of the most difficult situations I've ever had in my life. Actually, you know what? I did want to die during that too. So there's been twice in my life where I was like, Jesus, take me. Like I'm done. And I felt so bad. From the IVIG, I had aseptic meningitis. And so the headache, like there is no way to describe a meningitis headache. It is literally like someone is pouring molten lava into the back of your head. Absolutely horrific. And so that on top of that, and just, it was a disaster. But so I had very bad PTSD from that. And then PTSD from the transplant. You know, reactive anxiety comes with all of this. I have severe anxiety. I mean, like I do have depression. I go into very kind of like if I'm not on an antidepressant, I have a very difficult time. And so a lot of people are like, "Oh, you're just so happy-go-lucky all the time," and I'm like, "You haven't seen me off my antidepressants." Not that they change me that much. Like I'm still the same person, but it makes everything a little bit more bearable. So I have rescue anxiety meds. I did EMDR for PTSD. Like I see a psychiatrist who I love dearly. And so I'm all about like, you got to take care of your physical, emotional, spiritual, like energetic health, all these things, right? It all comes into play. So I actually found blogging. Why I started my blog was like an emotional decompression because I just needed to get it out. I could not handle having all of that in me. I needed to put it somewhere else. And I had no idea that other people would want to read it. I did not start it to like build a community. Like that sounds really bad. Like I'm so glad that it happened because I've got to help people through it. Like my emotional decompression is helping other people, which is awesome. But I really started it for me because I just couldn't, it was all too much. And so that's been really good for me to just put it out there, you know?
Definitely, because originally it was for family and friends, wasn't it, to keep them updated? So
I had it on like a
keep telling them everything, which is brilliant. Yeah.
It was really hard to call like this grandma and then this aunt and then my parents and then my in-laws and be like, okay, well this was this test result, it was bad again. Instead I was able to just say, blog about it and tell them how I felt, and I would only have to repeat it once because they could all read it.
Exactly.
And it was easier to put my thoughts into words in that case too.
Yeah.
So,
and then you also don't have that family grapevine thing going on.
Exactly.
I don't know if you have that in your family, but my family is terrible.
Oh yeah. So it was just much easier to be like, read it from my perspective instead of hearing it from someone else. Because like I said, a lot of people are optimists, but they're unrealistic optimists. So they'll be like, she's doing great. And I'm like, I just had like my 6th seizure for the day. I'm not doing great. And so it's like writing it from my perspective. I'm able to be honest, like brutally honest with people because I think the world needs that. Like, we see this vast misinterpretation in media of what it's like to have illness. Like all
Totally.
these perks and you're so sick and dying, but you feel great and you can do all these things. And it's like, that's not reality.
No.
And so it's been really nice to be able to educate people in with like I clearly I use a lot of humor. But it's like very raw and very real, but also like uplifting and humorous, which
Definitely.
I think has been good for a lot of my family and friends to really understand.
Sure, yeah. I mean, like, how did your family and friends react when you first got like a feeding tube and things? Like,
I
how
think
did
that
that
was
come
the
about?
first, I think that was like the first time they were like, oh shoot, she's really
Oh,
like crap. Like our life is changing. Cause you know, like Thanksgiving, all Christmas, all holidays are surrounded around food.
yeah,
And so it's like, oh, hey Chanel, come sit with us at the table. And I'm like, you
like
really
take
didn't have to put
away.
out a plate. That was kind of useless. They still do, and I think it's very sweet. Um, but we started this thing called bird bagging, so where I chew up food and then I spit it out into like a bag, just so I can taste stuff. Which
No,
sometimes I throw up anyway because just having the taste in my mouth makes my body like start to move, try to pretend to move, and but you know what I mean. So they've all been very adaptive and accepting. But yeah, I think that was the first time where they were like, "Oh, she's gonna
wow.
die."
Wow, gosh. It must be crazy, seriously. Um,
Yeah.
how have they kind of reacted to your other health conditions as well? I mean, have they kind of unknowingly been treating you differently, but kind of, in that way where people are like, oh,
Yeah,
well, I'll do this because it will be nice, but then you're kind of like, really don't need that.
you know, my family's done a really good job of not treating me like they take care of my needs, but they don't treat me like a sick person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like a patient.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so like my husband, like I like again, like I like to use humor. So my husband and I will make really silly, dark jokes and just like, you know what I mean? Like I crapped the bed last night and I said, oh, can you grab me some underwear? And he threw me a pair of white underwear and like laughed about it. And I was like, that's not funny, but it's also hilarious.
It's hilarious at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know what I mean?
Oh,
We still goof around and it's like, there are definitely times where they'll just look at me and start crying. And I'm like, oh, like I need them to be strong so that I can
yeah.
stay strong, which isn't fair because I have breakdowns. They are allowed to have breakdowns too. It's a really delicate balance.
It sounds like it. Yeah, definitely. Oh gosh, I mean, okay, and there was something on your blog which I found really interesting, and I'm hoping you can chat about it.
Yeah.
So I was reading about your skydive on your blog.
Yeah.
So what the heck? A skydive is crazy anyway. But do you think you have like a different relationship with death now because of your condition?
Absolutely. Yes.
Mm.
Okay. So, skydiving has always been one of those things that I was like, I'm not putting it on my bucket list because it's just too much. And my doctors were like, yeah, that's too much. Like, absolutely not. And so, you know, when I got better, I was like, like after my first transplant, I was like, oh, or my transplant, you know, I was like, I'm not going to skydive. I'm not going to put myself at that risk. And then when I relapsed, I was like, shoot, like I just got to do stuff. Like screw, like I was kind of like tiptoeing. Like in my mind, I was like, I'm living it up. But also when I look back, I was also being very cautious about every little thing. And I'm like, you know what? Like this disease, I almost had like this false sense of security after the first transplant.
Mm,
Like, okay, maybe I'm not going to die. And then I relapsed and I was like, you know what? This disease is going to kill me. I just need to do the things I want to do.
totally.
And so I signed up to skydive, and my husband skydived with me. And my friend flew up from California, who actually also has a feeding tube and is seriously ill. And she skydived with me. And a bunch of my friends showed up. We had like 20 people there to watch. My doctors were pissed.
I
And
can
a
imagine.
lot of them were like, like, no, like, absolutely not. One of them, though, he gets it. He just gets it. And he's like, you got to live your life. And he's like definitely against medical advice. Like I can't tell you, yes, you should do this, but I'll sign it if this is something you really want to do. So he signed my waiver. I taped up my tube, it got my oxygen, and I jumped out of that freaking plane. And it was the best thing I've ever done.
Oh,
It was
amazing.
so much fun. I wish I could do it again. My body, like, I mean, I was wearing like compression garments. Like I was like wearing a diaper, like they had a puke bag ready on the guy. Like it was, luckily everything went relatively smoothly and they were like ready on the ground, and it was amazing. I loved it. And it just made me realize like, I you can't just like wait for life to start. You know what I mean? Like
Totally.
you're not going to get an invitation. You're not going to get someone to sweep in and fix it. Like quit waiting to be healthy and just live now. And so that's what I'm doing. Like my body doesn't let me do everything I want to do. But I was like, you know what, before I get too sick again, which is stupid because I'm super sick, but I'm like, I'm throwing myself out of a plane. I just got to do it. And everyone was really supportive besides my doctors. And it was a great time. I loved it.
Oh, I can imagine.
Very freeing.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts. So I definitely have a different relationship with death at this point. I'm not like, laughing in the face of it, but I am just realizing that like waiting it's like futile. It's pointless, just like do the things you want to do. And I wish that I would have lived that way a little bit more before my transplant.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you kind of want to do now that you've done your skydiving? Have you kind of got a taste for like dangerous things?
That was like the pinnacle of all things for me was skydiving. I've wanted to do it my whole life. But I had like this fear of death. And like now don't get me wrong. Like I don't not have a fear of death, but I have a relationship with it now.
Yeah.
And so I felt much more comfortable skydiving. So yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know what's next on my list. Something, everyone's been asking me that. And I'm like, I don't know. I kind of want to skydive again. It was so fun.
It's like, how can I get my doctors to be annoyed at me again?
I know, right? I'm like, how can I make them hate me more? That's one way to do it. To just go against all medical advice and jump out of a plane.
That's the mission. That is the mission.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So what advice could you give someone who is maybe newly diagnosed with a condition of some kind?
I mean, really that, like, stop waiting to be healthy. Stop waiting for things to improve. Just live your life. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to take adaptation. You are going to have to change your life and yourself. You're going to have to reevaluate your passions. And like, that sucks. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow, but that is the only way you're going to find a life worth living. And a lot of times when you change your way of thinking and when you truly accept your circumstances, I always like tell people, cause it's true, submitting is synonymous with acceptance. Once you submit to your circumstances and you've accepted them, you really take the time to do what's attainable. And like I said, like achieving things really makes you feel good. And so I know it's hard and it took me years. I'm not going to pretend that I just woke up and was like, I accept everything. I'm ready to go. Like it took a lot of time. But once I got there, everything was easier. Like I said, like the secret pessimist, right? Like a realistic optimist. Everything was easier because when I got that new test result, or that bad test result, who am I kidding? All the new test results are bad. I wasn't knocked back as hard because I was expecting it. And so I was able just to kind of keep going, And so just don't wait to live your life. Live it now because you still have a life. And who knows, like you may find purpose in that suffering. I just like, instead of just wishing and, hoping and all these things about what your life could have been and just constantly thinking about, I could have done so much, like just revere it for what it is. You know what I mean? You can find a lot of good things in something broken. You're going to have to look for them and you might have to adjust the angle you're looking, but it's still there, but it's going to be different. And at some point you just have to figure that out. And it's a different timeline for everybody. So, don't be overly optimistic because you're going to set yourself up for failure if you have a progressive disease, and find a way to live, find a new passion.
I love that. Yeah, totally. I always say that it's not the cards that you dealt with in life that matters, it's how you play them that really counts.
Totally. Yeah, I love that.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready for some super quick secrets?
Yes.
I know this is the bit that you were really looking forward to.
I was thinking so hard. I was like, I don't know. Okay.
Okay, enabled warriors, this is the part of the show where we find out a little bit more about the personality of today's guest with some super quick secrets. Are you ready, Chanel?
So ready. Shoot.
I don't know why I sang that, and I'm so sorry for that.
I sing everything.
Terrible. Okay, what is the most inspiring book that you've ever read? Go.
The Book of Mormon.
I love the Book of Mormon.
Yeah? Oh my gosh, yes, me too.
It's so good. I want to go see the musical so bad. Okay.
Oh. Like the actual Book of Mormon.
Oh no, I didn't mean the actual.
No, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh. No, can I just tell you, you're not the first person to say that. They're like, oh yeah, I love the musical. And I'm like, I've never seen the musical. Like, I'm
What musical? Oh my god, that is so funny.
Book of Mormon. Very inspiring. Beautiful testament of Christ.
Amazing. Let's move swiftly on.
That was so good. That was so funny. I love it. No, that was such a perfect answer. Oh my gosh.
What is the weirdest thing that you've ever done?
Ridden an ostrich.
You've ridden an ostrich? Like, what?
Yeah, my grandparents. Oh, wow. You're not going to believe this. This is true. My grandparents owned an ostrich farm, and they had 70 ostriches. They farmed them for meat, and one of them they let me keep as a pet. I named it Lucy, and she was super nice. I raised her from those giant eggs, so she was like she was my little 8-foot bestie, and she would let me ride her. So I've ridden an ostrich.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What is the most favorite place that you've ever visited?
The cat sanctuary on Lanai. So there's an island in Hawaii that's just off Maui. It's like an hour boat ride. And there is a cat sanctuary where there's over 500 domestic cats, all the strays from the islands of Hawaii, they bring here. So it's literally Cat Island in paradise. Like, you're surrounded by palm trees and just beauty. And there's just 500 adorable little cats just like, meow, oh, give me treats. So you bring a treat bag and you shake it and you lay down, and like 500 cats just engulf you, which is basically what I think heaven looks like. And so I love cats. Like, my cats are my surrogate children. And so that was like the happiest day of my life, that was one of my bucket list items, was going to the cat sanctuary.
That is so cool. I love that. Love that.
I love Hawaii. Anywhere in Hawaii is really my happy place, but cat sanctuary is number one.
That's awesome. So what is the scariest thing that you've ever done, do you think?
Live.
You have a lot to choose from.
Living is terrifying. Honestly, life is terrifying. Gosh, that's such a dumb answer, but really it's like living takes a lot of courage. Like, it's scary. Life is scary. The world we live in, oh my gosh, is terrifying right now. And it takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to just be alive right now. If I'm giving like a typical answer, probably cliff diving, which is funny because skydiving was not scary at all, but because you feel very secure, like you're strapped to another human being, they take all the safety precautions. Cliff diving is just like you're scrambling up, this very rickety, you're jumping off like a 40-foot cliff with, nothing, hitting this water. So, I mean, I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. And so cliff diving was probably, I love it, but it's very terrifying. I do that I used to. When I would go to Hawaii, I would always find the best cliff diving spots. We have a few good cliff diving spots here in Washington. I can't really do it though. Well, number one, I have a feeding tube right now. Oh my gosh, there's my other cat. There's Cannonball. Oh, they're both up there. Look at that. Can you even see them?
Yes.
Oh, are they going to kiss? Oh, please kiss. Sometimes they like kiss each other and they like clean, What was I saying? Oh yeah. So there was a really good cliff diving spot we used to like to go to. That was actually at Lake Crescent, which is one of my bucket list items. So that was really fun. So that's probably
awesome.
The scariest thing I've done.
Is it cliff diving? Cliff diving in life. Good answers.
Yeah, cliff diving in life.
So where can other warriors find out more about you and what you do?
Gosh, well, my blog, So thetubefedwife.blogspot.com, because I'm too cheap to buy a actual URL or whatever domain. My Instagram, thetubefedwife. I have a Twitter, thetubefedwife. I don't use it because I can't say anything in under 140 characters. I have a YouTube channel. Not that I have that many videos. That one's, I think, Chanel White, because I couldn't figure out how to make it not that. Pretty much my blog and my Instagram are the outlets I use the most, and where I really share with the most real, raw glimpse of my life.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm
Amazing.
pretty bad at responding to everything. Disclaimer. Also, disclaimer, they're not medical advice. It's just me and my understanding of my life. So if you don't like TMI, if what I've said during this interview is too much for you, my blog is probably not for you. Neither is my Instagram. I once had a woman get really mad because I had talked about just before they put in this feeding tube, and I was having a really hard time swallowing. I had tried to eat like a buttered egg for breakfast because I was trying to get it to just drop down my esophagus.
Yeah.
And I ended up puking up the egg, like a whole chunk of egg that had just been sitting in my esophagus. I could feel it. It never went down. Came out like 6 hours later.
Wow.
And she was like, yeah, I was like, first, it was just chilling in there for 6 hours, like this little chunk of egg. And this woman was like, ew, gross. Like, some things just shouldn't be shared. And I was like, lady, I didn't even tell you about the times I crapped the bed. Like, I've been so nice. Like, puking up an egg is not gross, first off. And like, this is life with chronic illness. If you don't like it, don't follow.
Yeah.
Like, I respect your opinion, but you can just click unfollow. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, just be warned that I share openly, and chronic illness is not pretty. It is not.
It's not.
It's often, it's often quite disturbing and disgusting. And I'm like, I want to be real with people. So just prepare yourselves.
Yeah, I think it's so refreshing how you're just so open about everything. It's so great to read. It's so refreshing as well. So, enabled warriors listening, if you want to be disgusted and disturbed, definitely go and check out the Tube Fedwife. Oh my goodness, it's yeah. As soon as you start reading your blog, you just like, I'd spend hours on it.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it.
That's amazing. Oh, wow. So yeah, remember, warriors, you can go and connect with Chanel there, and just remember, warriors, stay enabled. And thank you so much, Chanel. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you today. You've been amazing.
You too.
So thank you so much, and we'll catch up soon. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
If you want to fight back against your invisible illness and help take the dis out of disability, then join the tribe on Facebook, facebook.com/enabledwarriors. If you love this podcast, click that subscribe button and never miss another episode. And remember, warriors, stay enabled.